What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Cracka, which is comics, reviews, awesome movies, comedy, anything else I think that kicks ass. This is part 2 of episode 16. In part 1, I was just talking about how to help future collectors who want to start collecting comics and what to look for and so on and so forth. Moving right into that, jumping right in, I'll show you a really good example of exiting and entering in comics as well as the remakes. And the perfect thing of that is Angel loses his wings in the Uncanny X-Men and winds up becoming Archangel in X Factor. And if you look at X Factor, the original team was the original X-Men, but then later on they changed it to a new team in X Factor number 71. Then they had the death of the Multiple Man. That was quite sad. I love Multiple Man. And then they redid the thing itself later on, where he's back. That's a perfect example of what to look for with that kind of stuff. Hopefully with this episode I'll also get into grading. I'll tell you what to look for with that. It's very, I'm not a grader. It's very hard to figure stuff out with that. I mean, they have poor, good, very good, fine, very fine, near mint, perfect, stuff like that. Then now with the actual grading companies, they have 5.0 and 9.8, things like that. The higher the number, the better off you are. That's one thing to look for, especially if you're buying graded comics. Graded comics in general, I mean, I haven't had any graded. I want to, but they are expensive to have it done. I actually wanted to send one of my comics out to get graded, and it was $60, and it would take over 6 weeks, which I didn't have $60 at the time, but it is worth it, especially if you want to, keep your comic well preserved. They seal it in a huge case. They write everything on there, so it's good. But if you do send out a comic, just remember you're never going to read that again, because if you break that seal and open it, then it's pretty much a waste of your time and money to get it graded. So, but moving on, good example. I went to a comic book store and I bought a comic. It was very, very cheap, and I couldn't figure out why. And usually if an old comic is really cheap, there's usually a reason. It's, I guess like buyer beware would be the thing. I found an issue where Elektra was killed by Bullseye, and I've been looking for it for a long time, and I was like, wow, it's pretty damn cheap. And of course I missed the obvious, which was a huge number drawn right on the cover, which me just being stupid, I was like, wow, I got this really cheap, it's awesome. And then when I looked at it, I'm like, oh man, it's screwed. But it's in my collection, even though people wrote on it. But eventually I'll find a better condition one. But another example of kind of poor condition, I got these 2 X-Men comics at a garage sale, and they've seen better days, and just every year they just kind of deteriorate more and more. It's the first appearance of Sauron in the X-Men, which you really can't see it too well, but in the corner, I mean, it's already starting to rip out, and it's unfolding in the bottom corner. And it's a little better condition of an X-Men, but it's the same thing, like the top's like coming apart, and it's starting to go downhill. But what can you do to the comics? They made of paper, and eventually they're just going to disintegrate. Moving on, give you some examples of other things like I was talking about in the first part. Let's see. Well, another example of grading, because I'm going to be all over the place with this stuff, but Very Fine, which is pretty good copy. I mean, fine, very fine, they're usually good to go for. Near mint and mint, of course, are the better ones you want to look for. You try to stay away from the poor comics, because especially if you want to collect them and sell them eventually, because people just don't want to buy them. I mean, I usually buy the poor comics if I just want to add it to my collection, which isn't always the best idea, but sometimes, like I said, some things you just want to have in the collection, and if you can't find it for the right price, get a crappy copy. A good example, like I said, of characters debuting in comics. You never know who's going to be popular. You never know. For instance, I got the first appearance of Cable when it came out, as well as the first appearance of Deadpool. And it's funny because I didn't think they were going to be as big as they were, well, especially Deadpool. Deadpool is like through the roof right now. Everyone wants Deadpool. Everyone loves Deadpool. But when he came out, he wasn't a merc with the mouth. He was just basically a mercenary with mutant powers, and he skyrocketed from there. But that's a perfect example of you never know what's going to happen with comics. Another one is the new Fantastic Four, where they had Wolverine, the Hulk, Spider-Man and Ghost Rider take over for the old Fantastic Four. That's a good example of teams switching. Let's see. Another good example of a milestone is Silver Surfer number 50. Pretty cool cover. That's pretty much what got me more than anything else. I just like the cover. Let's see, moving on. Examples of death issues is one of the big ones was Captain America when he was killed. People were going crazy over this comic. Another one is the Human Torch when he was killed in the in Fantastic Four. One of the big ones, especially when I was a kid, especially for death issues, was the death of Superman. This was crazy. When I was actually in junior high when it happened, and they went all out. I mean, they had an actual tombstone in New York that had the Superman symbol. The comic was going, I'm not even kidding, it was going, some comic book stores, it was selling for $500-$600 a piece the first month it came out. I mean, now it's technically almost worthless because everyone has one. But back then, man, it was crazy. They only allowed you to have one comic. You were only allowed to buy one of them. And I had to go to all different stores just to get a couple of them, especially one to read and one to save. And then, of course, later on they brought them back, which it was cool to have them back, but the Rebirth one basically wasn't as crazy to go after as the death. The death of Superman was insane. That was, you can even look it up on the internet. It was crazy. Another example of things, like I said, you don't know what's going to happen, is Secret Wars, where Spider-Man gets the black suit for the first time, which winds up becoming Venom. Right there. I got it because I just thought Spider-Man looked awesome in a black suit, and then I wound up finding that it was worth money, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. Good example. Let's see. Another milestone, Uncanny X-Men number 300 with the foil. Not worth a whole lot, but it's a cool book. Somewhat of a death issue, but it's an anniversary where they supposedly killed off Wolverine, but you know, they didn't do it. It's something else. Cool comic. Just throw that out there. What's this one? When Wolverine takes out the entire Hellfire Club, just goes after him. Really cool. Another one of death and exiting. Jean Grey when she dies, which causes Cyclops to leave. Those are good examples of stuff to look for. More intros. First appearance of Bishop, who I didn't think was going to do well when he actually did. Cool character. First Jubilee. The first Dazzler. Let's see, the first time Rogue is in the X-Men. Like I said, just stuff you want to look for, especially like, well, nowadays it's a little easier, but back in the day you really wanted to look closely. First time Wolverine has his brown costume. A newer comic that I had gotten, to prove another point, is Colossus gets the Juggernaut powers. So right there, crossover kind of things, stuff like that I always look for. McFarlane, I love McFarlane's work, so I got a lot of, pretty much almost all the ones that he did on Spider-Man, especially like Venom and stuff like that. It was just really cool. Another thing, a good example of stuff, is when characters guest star. As you can see, Captain America and Black Widow are with the X-Men. That's a good one. They did a portrait cover a while ago, back in the 80s. Pretty much every Marvel book had some kind of a portrait kind of thing. And some of them are hard to find, and some of them are actually pretty expensive. So, but I mean, it is cool to have them all. I don't have all the portrait ones. I only have like 2 or 3. I mean, I have the X-Men, Spider-Man, and I think I have Thor. That's about it. But eventually I'll get them all. Eventually. Reveal books are usually good. They had, when the Hobgoblin was revealed to be Ned Leeds, but it really wasn't him. Then they found another one. So on and so forth. The first time characters fight is usually good too. First time Sabretooth fought Wolverine. Another example, Milestone. Number 275 of the X-Men, and actually got an award for being just an awesome book, and it really was. One of my pride and joys is the first appearance of the second Green Goblin, which was Harry Osborn. I'm a huge Green Goblin fan, so that was cool to find that. Let's see, first appearance of Morbius. Of course, when Spider-Man's got all the arms. That's a good one to have. Another new book was when Mary Jane got Spider-Man powers. Very cool. But like I said, hopefully this is helping what you want to look for, especially if you're starting out. I actually got the first appearance of Speedball when I was a kid. I just thought he was cool. He kind of went up and down in popularity, but I think he leveled off a little bit now. First appearance of Rogue, that's another awesome one. And of course, another big one you have to have them together is the first appearance of Gambit, which is funny because Gambit, when he first came out, he didn't use cards. He didn't use playing cards. He used toothpicks and lock picks, and it's funny too because his eyes would shoot energy into the object and then he would throw it. Very cool. Not like now when he just charges it up through his hands and ba-boom. An example of, like I said, I'm bouncing all over the place. An example of variants would be like Red Sonja in black, and then I got it in white. I bought them both because they're only $1/4 a piece, so it was worth it. I mean, are they worth money? Probably not. I just thought, it was for 25 cents. You can't go wrong, especially nowadays. Let's see. Another one to look for is any kind of zero issue besides number 1. This is a Fathom. I have the certificate, and even though it's not signed or anything, they are starting to go up because unfortunately Michael Turner passed away. He was an awesome artist, and he did really good work, and it just sucks that he passed away. But the one thing that, even though it sucks, his stuff just starts going up more and more. It's when anything, guy passes away, your stuff goes through the roof. A funny kind of comic thing that like I said, you never know what's going to go. Stan Lee meets Spider-Man. I tried to get it signed by Stan Lee, but that didn't happen, unfortunately. Sketch covers are cool to go after. I had that sketched by Michael Turner, and I had it signed on the bottom. And of course, I have the certificate to prove it. Let's see. Even like characters like that aren't Marvel or DC, you never know, like Image, Darkchild #1, certificate. And like I said, even with variants, Spider-Man Chapter 1, I have the variant, certificate. A sad issue that came around, that I actually have 2 of them, but you were only allowed to get 1, but like I said, I went to different comic stores because I'm crazy like that. It was when 9/11 happened, which sucks beyond all measure. They put out a black cover Spider-Man just to mourn and to show respect, but it's messed up. Like, even I know, like I said, like, no, it was 9/11, but it's worth money. I mean, it's sick and everything that it's worth money because it's just black issue, but what can you do? It was actually a pretty good tribute to the law enforcement environment, stuff like that. So it's not a bad thing. Another thing you want to look for, especially if you go to comic book conventions, try to look for exclusives. Like True Blood is a good example. It's a Comic-Con exclusive because they're usually only able to get them at the Comic-Cons, and if you buy them online, usually they're a fortune, especially for certain things, because obviously people want to make the money. So if you go to a convention, always look for any kind of exclusive comic that's strictly for them. You're better off picking it up. Another cool example going to DC was the Joker, the Killing Joke, when he shot Barbara Gordon, which was Batgirl, paralyzed her, made her Oracle. That's pretty much it for this part. Like I said, it's going pretty long there. No perverted thing intended, I assure you. Tune in to part 3, and I'll show you comics that have signatures and stuff like that, and how to deal with them, and maybe get more into grading and stuff. Thanks for watching. I hope you come back for part 3. Later.